Om Akhandam Satchidanandam Avang Manasa Gocharam Atmanam Akhiladharam Ashraye Bhishta Siddhaye. We are studying here Sadananda Yati's Vedanta Sar, which is the best primer on Vedanta. Being a Prakarana Grantha, it deals more with the Prameya Mimamsa, that is, the nature of the thing to be realized. And last time we read up to the sentences are numbered and we read up to the sentence 31. And we had promised that we will take up 31 again. But today, let me go back to 29. Because some important points are there. And last time, whether I spoke correctly or not, whether you understood correctly or not, a doubt has arisen. So let me go back to that. Prayojanam tu tadaikya prameyagata ajnana nivrittihi swaswarupa nanda vaptischa tarati shokam atmavid ityadi shrutehe brahmavid brahmaiva bhavati ityadi shrutescha. Now the first point is Prayojan. Though in the book Prayojan has been translated as the necessity, I feel the better translation will be the purpose. And I told you in simple English why we are studying. What is the purpose of our studying? Why? What is the purpose of our life? What the life is meant for? And that is not to be decided by our intellect. Otherwise, people think purpose of life or aim of life is to become a doctor, an engineer, or a sannyasi or a preacher. But becoming like that does not satisfy our needs, or the feeling of want is not gone. Prayojanam has to be that which gives us full sense of fulfillment. That my life is fulfilled. The purpose for which I was born has been fulfilled. That should be the feeling. And so, Sadananda says Prayojanam tu. Tu is always used for Atad Vyavrutti or Anya Vyavrutti. That means the wrong thoughts from our mind should be removed. That is the purpose of this word tu. So, but the purpose is, but means we should not imagine purpose subjectively, but the purpose of life is, as seen by the rishis or as proved again and again by all the sadhakas, the only position which gives us fulfillment real, Kritarthata also it is called. So that is the purpose. And in that respect, I told you that purpose is one of the anubandhas. That means those four things we should always be present in our mind when we undertake study of any spiritual text. Then only it benefits us spiritually. And in that respect, I made a comment about my own Guruji. I told you that every class, whether it may be on a Karma Yoga or Bhakti Yoga or Raja Yoga or Jnana Yoga or any Upanishad or Gita or Mandukya, he would never end only with the topic of that day. He would say after this, more progress would come and more progress would come till we reach Am Brahmasmi, and that is the point of error I found. Some people have got it wrongly. in his consciousness, Aham Brahmasmi was never final. And that was the speciality of his teaching. She would say that then Aham Brahmasmi Vritti would rise, and then he used to describe always in one particular way, then a flash would come. A flash would come and the Vritti will vanish and we'll realize the reality. So realization of the reality cannot be called as Aham Brahmasmi, though vocally that is the nearest expression. Vocally that is the nearest expression, but it is not the final. In the final realization, there will be no Vani, no voice, no sentence. If we are speaking, that means it is not the final. And so, that was the point which I wanted to correct, that my Guruji never thought. And his expression would be so emphatic and confidential that immediately would think that yes, he has realized it is speaking from his realization. He would say, then the more progress, then Aham Brahmasmi Vritti comes, and then there is a flash in which the Vritti vanishes and the person realizes his reality. So that was another purpose of my taking it back again. Second thing is, let us read it again. Tad aikya prameya gata ajnana nivrittihi. So the main sentence, main clause is ajnana nivritti. Nivritti means stopping off or removal of. So dispelling of what? That is the main point. Though ajnana is the topic he takes up in 33, and there we have to discuss it. But because the word has come here, we want to discuss it a little here. Ajnana does not mean ignorance in the ordinary sense of the term. I do not know a particular thing. This ignorance is not meant by ajnana. In the Vedantic terminology, ajnana always tells a wrong knowledge. I do not know the nature of Brahman is not the thing. I have a wrong concept about Brahman. I have a wrong consciousness about Brahman. I have a wrong consciousness about myself. I have a wrong consciousness about the world which I see. So this wrong consciousness is the main problem of life. And nivritti, this wrong consciousness comes to an end. And when the wrong consciousness comes to an end, what remains? What we are, what we really are. Our reality shines. Our reality would shine the moment the wrong consciousness about ourselves and the wrong consciousness about the world would vanish. This division of a subject and object itself is wrong, and that would vanish. And so our real nature would shine. That is the purpose of life. Purpose of life is to get rid of the wrong consciousness which we are harboring. But now, wrong consciousness, I said about ourselves and about the world, wrong consciousness, we are about everything. There are so many things about which we are ignorant or we have wrong consciousness. So here, tad aikya prameya gata ajnana nivritti. So first we should see the original sentence and then the adverbs. Gata. Gata means involving that. That aikya prameya. And I repeatedly told you Sadananda's speciality. He always emphasizes this word pramana, prameya. That means that aikya prameya. It refers to sentence 28, the connection. Sambandhastu, it says that aikya prameya. So even before in Vishaya, Jiva Brahmakyam Shuddha Chaitanyam Prameyam. There the word Prameyam has come first to be realized. I told you that the subject matter of Vedanta is not Brahman. The subject matter of Vedanta is not Atman. Subject matter of Vedanta cannot be described as the identity between Brahman and Atman. The subject matter of Vedanta is the realization of the identity between Jiva and Brahman. This realization is the purpose of Vedanta. The subject matter of Vedanta itself is the realization. So realization is always described in the Vedanta, not only the theory. Vedanta is not a philosophy book. Vedanta is a spiritual science. And so that is, Sanandati reminds us again and again about that remember, the thing to be realized, thing to be known, don't call it thing to be proved. What will happen by proving a thing outside? If we rationally prove something, does it affect us? So prameya should not mean proof. Prameya should mean the realization, the thing to be realized. So tad aikya prameya, tad aikya. Tad aikya means the apparent contradiction between the individual self and the universal self should vanish. We should realize that the individual self is not different from the universal self. The Jiva is not different from Brahman. Jiva Brahmaikyam. When the Jiva and Brahma are not different, then both the words should stand cancelled. And as he has said, Jiva Brahmaikyam Shuddha Chaitanyam. What remains is neither Jiva nor Brahman, but pure consciousness. We can add, if you like, existence, consciousness, bliss, infinite or absolute. So that should remain. So that is Aikya Prameya. Aikya between the apparent individual self and the real self, the real nature of individual self, I should say, and the real nature of the universal self are not different at all. This is the identity between the two. Now, about this identity, involving this identity, you have wrong consciousness. We do not understand this identity. We do not believe this identity. We are not aware of this identity. That is our wrong knowledge about the identity of the individual and the universal soul. So, the wrong knowledge about the identity of the individual soul and the universal soul should come to an end. Tad Aikya Prameya, the identity has to be realized. That identity which has to be realized, in that respect, we have a wrong consciousness. We do not believe in that identity, or we think it is not possible to realize it. We have wrong knowledge about it. That should come to an end. That is the purpose of life. When the wrong knowledge will come to an end, the identity will shine. And that is the purpose of life. But instead of saying that the identity will shine, the practical position is that today we have wrong knowledge about that. And so, from practical point of view, Sadanandayati says the wrong consciousness should come to an end. This is described negatively because it in relation to the fact of today's life. Our real nature is such and such, but we are not aware of it. We are aware of ourselves in the wrong way. And as I said, we are aware of the world in the wrong way. Why I mentioned that? The division between I and the world itself is a wrong consciousness. And so that has to come to an end. If that comes to an end, what will happen? I will become the universal soul. I will be what I am really. That my real nature would be realized. Real nature is today imagined. Real nature today is heard, but that will be realized if the wrong consciousness about it vanishes. Not wrong idea, not wrong understanding, wrong consciousness. Today, our actual awareness is that I am an individual, though changing, though under the world of objects. That is wrong. And so, when my real nature is realized, the wrong knowledge about it, wrong consciousness about it comes to an end, and the Second way of describing the purpose, or the second point of describing the purpose, is Swaswarupa Ananda Vaptisya. I told that consciousness itself can be called existence consciousness bliss. So our own real nature, Swaswarupa, our own real nature is bliss, and but we do not have it today because our real nature is not in our consciousness. We do not have the bliss. The pleasures in this world are fleeting. They are always result in pain. They are beset with pain always. Pleasures of the senses. The mental state can be called happiness, but that also changes. And we have the waves of depression now and then. So that is not our real nature. Now, first of all, let us understand that our real nature is bliss. This can be understood in two ways, many ways, but let me enumerate two ways. One is, let us think of deep sleep. The purpose or the aim is not to achieve deep sleep, but we can use our deep sleep, or rather the memory of our deep sleep in the waking state, to understand our real nature. And our deep sleep, when we get up, then the memory of deep sleep flashes, and through that we are going to analyze. And what is the memory? I knew nothing, I slept happily. Can any one of you find anything other than this? Sadananda will later on describe how philosophers find wrong. But the normal man will say, I knew nothing, I slept happily. Now we are not going to discuss I knew nothing. I knew I was there, though I of the waking state was not there. I of the dream state was not there, but I was there. And that comes into the memory. Without experience, there is no memory. So there was an experience of I. So I knew. Otherwise, if knowledge was not there, memory itself would not come. But there was no object to be known. I knew nothing. When the students learn English for the first time, they would say, I did not know anything. Then teacher would say it is wrong grammatically. I did not know anything. I say I knew nothing. Because did not know is not a truth. I always knew. But I will tell this in a humorous way. An anecdote I will tell. My Guruji was seeking opinion of every member of the ashram about a certain point, about a decision he had to take. And I knew well, and he perhaps knew well, that my opinion is opposite to his opinion. And so I did not want to express it at all. So when he said, what is your opinion on this point? I said, I do not know. Immediately he said, in your do not know, there is a no. In your do not know, there is a no. You are hiding that. You open it out. So that is an anecdote I remembered in this context. So I knew, but there was no object to be known. Here there was something to be known, but I was hiding it. So I knew nothing and I slept. Slept means neither my mind was working nor my indriyas were working. That is the meaning of I slept happily. Is an universal fact, very important universal fact. Here also I remember something. When in Rishikesh, in that Vivek ashram I was taking classes, one old man, Rigeti, would be very regular, and he had attended Vedanta classes from many big stalwarts of his time, and yet there was a doubt persisting in him. And the doubt was in the old age, all these people suffer. Is it Prarabdha? What can be called? Like that, like that. So man will never be free of suffering. That was his point, one point. I told, you may have any suffering, physical pain, mental suffering, and because of that you may not be able to sleep. But then the doctor gives you a tranquilizer, an injection or a tablet, or somehow you sleep. When you sleep, happiness is there. This happiness of sleep is the best happiness so long as this worldly life is concerned, mind you. If you tell somebody, you may enjoy to your heart's content, nobody will object, but you should not sleep for 3 or 4 days. What will happen to that man? He'll become mad. Why? Because throughout our life, we have pleasures and pains and happinesses and miseries, and we seek that happiness of the deep sleep, which even for a moment, that is the solution of all the troubles of the day. And then next day we are fresh again because we have experienced that happiness. Nobody can deny this. You may be, as I said, suffering physically, mentally, but once you get the sleep, you are happy and happy alone. So that is the state of life experienced every day where we have happiness. What does it show? There was no object from which I was deriving any pleasure. There was no mental object from which I was deriving any pleasure. The mind was at rest. Mind was inactive. Indriyas were inactive. And on that inactive mind, the bliss which is my real nature was reflecting. The bliss which is my real nature was reflecting on the inactive mind, and because the mind was not disturbing that reflection, when the mind is active, it actually disturbs our happiness. We do not get pleasure from the organs. It is actually disturbing that we get from our organs or from mind even. So the mind was not there to obstruct or disturb the pure reflection of the pure bliss, which is our own real nature, was falling on the inactive mind, and our high consciousness was enjoying that. High consciousness was enjoying that. The Mandukya calls it Cheto Mukha, Ananda Mukha. That means who was enjoying? When the Indriyas were not there, mind was not there, high consciousness was there. And this high consciousness was enjoying the bliss which was the reflection of my true bliss upon the inactive mind. This is the analysis of deep sleep done by Vedanta purely, and we can verify it with everyday life. Now there is another way. In Shankaracharya's Bhashya on the Taittiriya Upanishad, he has given the second way. A question is raised there. How do you know that Brahman or our real nature is of the nature of bliss? How do you know that bliss is its nature? This question has been raised and he has replied it in this way. We have seen Brahmanas, he calls. Brahmanas means those who have realized Brahman. We have seen people of realization who do not have anything which the ordinary people use for getting pleasure or happiness. Ordinary people use some sport, something to get that happiness, eating, drinking, something, even dreaming, even drinking, even forgetting things. So they use something to become happy. And these people do not have anything of that sort. Absolutely nothing. And yet they are happy. Yet they are happy. It proves that their real nature is happiness. And this in life, this Shankaracharya stated. This in life, if we want to see See Sri Ramakrishna. See all his disciples. About Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother has said, I have not seen a Sadananda Purush like him. I have never seen him Nirananda, whether he is among children or young people or old people or without any people or in Samadhi. I have seen bliss always in him. And so, this bliss is our own real nature, but due to our wrong consciousness, we are deprived of experiencing that bliss. And if this wrong knowledge goes away, then Swaswarupa Ananda Avakti. It will be like an achievement. It will be like getting that bliss which is our own real nature. That is the purpose of life. And that proves the validity of Vedanta also. The validity of Vedanta is in fulfilling the purpose of life, which consists of getting the bliss of our own real nature and or by both you can say removal of the wrong consciousness which you have about our identity with the universal self, which is of the nature of pure consciousness, and the bliss which is our own real nature is to be realized. For this, Sadananda gives two quotations. Tarati Shokam Atmavid is from Chandogya, 7th chapter, Narada approaching Sanat Kumar. And Narada says that I am under sorrow because I do not know myself. If I would have known my real nature, I would not have had sorrow. That is what he says. I have heard from people like you that Tarati Shokam Atmavid. One who knows himself goes beyond sorrow. And Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati is another quotation he gives from Mundaka. That is, if you know Brahman, if you realize your identity with Brahman, Brahman is not an object to be known. To know Brahman means to realize your identity with Brahman. You become Brahman. You are Brahman. That is the identity you are realizing. And so, because Brahman is of the nature of bliss, and because it has removed your wrong knowledge about Brahman, so that is the purpose of life. This is 29. 30, we skip now as we had read last time, that this Adhikari, we can read it again. I am Adhikari, Janana Maranadi Sansara Nala Santapto, Deepta Shira Jalarashimiva, Upahara Pani, Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam Gurum Upasrutya, Tam Anusarati, Tad Vigyanartham Sa Gurumeva Vigachet, Samit Pani Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam Ityadi Shrute. This Adhikari, the whole thing is about this person who is on the line of fitness. I repeat, Adhikari is not a state of life. Adhikari is the direction taken by life. So, this Adhikari who has become scorched by the transmigratory life, which is full of birth and death, as if his head has caught fire. If a person's head has caught fire, the one thing he seeks is water. Jala Rashim Eva. That intensity is for his own mumuksha, and this is not some emotional thing. He does not forget certain things. For this, he goes to his guru. We have found that in the analysis of the Mundaka Upanishad, which is quoted here, that Vijnanartham sa Guru Meva Vigachet. And there Shankar has said that Shastra Gyopi Swatantrena Brahman Veshanam na Kuryat. And we have seen the reason for that also, that our mind works within Maya. It cannot take us out of Maya. We ourselves do not know what is in our mind. The person who is outside Maya, whom Maya does not affect, he not only knows Brahman, he knows how Maya plays in human mind. That is why he is a Guru. A Guru is defined as one who knows the truth, real nature of man, and also he knows the Maya or the wrong consciousness in how many ways it is playing havoc in human mind That also he knows. And therefore he can take the man out. That is called the Guru. So, such a Guru, he goes and then Upaharapani, he takes some present in his hand to show that he is ready to follow what the Guru says. Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam is the description of the Guru. He is well versed in the scriptures as well as his mind is fixed in Brahman. Gurum Upasrutya, going near him, tam Anusarati. He has to follow what the Guru says. Only surrendering to the Guru will not do. Here, I think I quoted sometimes. One of my teachers said, you can find three types of Gurus. A person goes and says, you know what I am. You have to accept me as I am. The one type of Guru would say, all right, I accept you as you are. And you will remain as you are. I will remain as I am. You will pay me my fees and I will give you blessing. This Guru is of no use. There may be another Guru, he said, no, I can't accept you. You purify yourself and then come to me. This is no Guru for us. But the third type of Guru will say, yes, I accept you as you are, but I will not keep you as you are. Are you ready to change? Then only come to me. I will accept you today as you are. But remember, if you come to me, you will not remain what you are. That is the Guru. So, I quoted one day, the Maharashtra saint Samartha Ramdas Swami has said that if the Guru does not make the Shishya do some sadhana, such type of Gurus, if you get three, even for half a pice, throw them away. So, Guru is one who guides, who makes the sadhaka do the right sadhana and realize. And so, he has to follow him. And that is given in the Mundakam Shloka, Tad Vijnanartham, se Guru Meva Vigachet. Vijnanartham means for realization. Samit Pani is the same as Upahara Pani. Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam is same. So that is the 30. And then we come to 31. That was the crux of our discussion that day. And most of you had very clearly understood. But I want to repeat it. So Guru Parama Kripaya Adhyaropa Apvada Nyayena Enam Upadishati. The quotation does not talk of Adhyaropa. Tasmai, she only talks of the fitness of the Shishya and the Guru should teach him. Tasmai sa vidvan upasannaya samyak prashanta chittaya shamanvitaya yenaksharam purusham veda satyam purovachatam tattvato brahma vidyam ityadi shrute. From the Mundaka, sequel to the previous shloka. So there is nothing new there. Now the point is the method adopted by the Guru. Parama Kripaya shows that he has no other motive. Adhyaropa Padanya. And here, you remember, I told you there are two distinct definitions. One used by the traditional Vedantis and one used by Sri Ramakrishna and taught by my Guru to me. The first method depends upon the fourth and fifth shlokas of the ninth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagad avyakta murtina mastani sarvabhutani nacha hamteshu avasthita nacha mastani bhutani pashyama yogameshwaram bhuta bhrut nacha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavana. So first feel the immanence. First feel that God is all pervading. First feel that God is pervading, permeating this universe. We do not see it because in invisible form he is permeating. Jagat avyakta murtina maya tatam. And all the beings are in me only. So inside, outside this world, he is there. Feel this. And when you have felt it, then understand that none of these things are real. Neither the bhutas are in me, nor I am in the bhutas. These two statements are not contradictory. They are complementary. First, and they show an order. The first is to feel the immanence of God and then to feel transcendence of God. This is the generally accepted method by the Vedantists, though it should not have been so. Because I told this is the Bhakta's way. The Bhakta feels God is everywhere and then he realizes God is transcendent. What should be the Vedantist way? I told you two instances. Mandukya Upanishad, mantra 1 and 2. Let me repeat, the mantra 1 tells, Om iti akyaram, Om iti etad akyaram idam sarvam. The meaning is that, the implication is that all that we see has no existence. It appears to exist because there is a reality at the back. This is the meaning of Om iti etad. I'm not going to explain it. Om iti etad akyaram idam sarvam means that idam sarvam has no existence of its own. It appears to exist because there is a reality at the back. This is what Thakur says, neti neti. How Adhyaropa comes here? We are not to superimpose world on God. We are not to superimpose God on the world. We don't have to think that God is the Srishti is the Pralaykarta. It is there already. We have only to know that world is an appearance. That world is a superimposition on God. That means God alone is real. God alone is real. When we know that the world does not exist by itself, it is unreal, it is a superimposition upon God. This is what we have to know. We don't have to do it in the second way. We don't have to do it. We have to know that world is only a superimposition on God. So God is transcendent. World is a superimposition. World does not exist. It appears to exist because of God. And then the second mantra of the Mandukya tells us, Sarvami etad Brahma. All that which was known to be unreal, appearing real because of Brahman at the back, that Brahman itself appears as this world. That Brahman itself appears as this world. Transcendence and then immanence. Neti neti iti iti. That is what Sri Ramakrishna has been telling repeatedly. So that is the real meaning of Adhyaropa. You can take what you like. But the first method is giving half knowledge only. Immanence is taken to be secondary there. And transcendence is the reality. But that which is transcendent itself appears as this world. Unless we realize this, we have not realized Brahma. Refer to Gita 13th chapter. Yada bhuta prithak bhavam ekatvam anupashyati tata evacha vistara brahma sampadate tada. When the variety which we see vanishes in oneness, and when from that very oneness we see the variety appearing, then only we realize Brahman. That is what the Gita 13th chapter tells us. So neti neti iti iti. On the basis of Shankara said there clearly, unless you know both sides, your identity is not real. Your identity is not real by telling that the world is unreal. Your identity is real. When we know that the world is unreal and that the Brahman itself appears as this world, now only the world is really unreal. Second instance I told, which some people did not catch, eighth mantra of the Isha Upanishad, please. Shankar's commentary on the eighth mantra of the Isha Upanishad. Kavir Manishi Paribu Swayambhu Yatha Tatyato Arthan Vedada Shashwati Vyasamaphya. I am taking Lisaparega, Chukramakaya Mavranam, Asna Viram Shuddham Apapa Viddham, Kavir Manishi, Paribu Swayambhu, Yatha Tattato Arthan Vedadat, Shashwati Vyasamapya is the eighth mantra of the Ishopanishad. I am taking only two words from there, Paribu and Swayambhu. If Shankar wanted, let me not go that way at all. If Shankar wanted immanence to be lower, it was very easy then. Pari normally means all sides. Paribhu means would have been the immanent God. Swayambhu is generally used for the transcendence. But Shankar has commented on that like this. Please listen carefully. Pari means upari. Pari means upari, Shankar says. That means something or the reality is beyond. Upari means beyond. Pari means upari, and he says that so upari vartate. It is beyond this world. Then what is Swayambhu? Yasya upari vartati, yasya upari vartati, sa swayameva bhavati iti Swayambhu. That means it appears like this that the world is lying here and is above, like the Plato's oneness. But that which is above, and from that from which it is above, he himself is both. He himself is both. That which is above and that which is below. He is not such a that which is below, unreal it is, but that from which he is above, from which he is beyond. That means the world. The world is pervaded by him. Not only the world is pervaded by him, there is no difference between he and the world. Yasya upari vartate, yasya upari vartate, sa swayameva bhavati iti swayambhu. I hope you people have understood by now. It appeared to me when I read that, it is Sri Ramakrishna's sentence almost. He tells my Kali is beyond three gunas and she is three gunas also. She is beyond the 24 tattvas of the Sankhya and she herself is the 24 tattvas. That is neti neti iti iti. That is Adharopa. So Adharop does not mean, in the second method at least, that we are to superimpose the world on God, but it means we should know that world is superimposed on God. The meaning is that God is transcendent. If the world is superimposed, if the world is not real, then God is transcendent. And we should know that that which is transcendent, the reality which is beyond itself appears as this world, that is iti iti, immanent. And so that is apavad. Apavad means we to know that the reality itself appears as this world. So I think we shall proceed now. The eighth mantra of Ishopanishad is clear now. Paribhu means he is beyond. Swayambhu means that which is beyond and from which it is beyond. All he himself appears. He himself is. So that is the Adharopapada Nyaya by which the Guru teaches the identity to the disciple. Now we enter the details of these words. So in Sadhandayati language now, what is Adharopa? Asarpabhutayam rajau sarparopavat vastuni avastu aropaha adharopa. This also can be interpreted in both the ways. He does not say what to superimpose. He says there is superimposition. So the knowledge or the understanding that it is superimposition is what he means. Asarpa bhutayam rajju. The rope is not a snake. The rope is not a snake. That rope which is not a snake, sarpa ropavat, But a snake is superimposed. Here again, we do not superimpose the snake. It appears, the rope appears to be snake to us. We are not superimposing. The snake is appeared on the rope. So like that, like the snake being superimposed on the rope which is not the snake, vastuni avastu aropa. Vastu. Vastu should not be translated as an object. The reality, the substance. Substance not in the sense of substance and qualities, but the substance. The substance or the reality should be the translation of the word vastu. Here in the Anuvada, it is given the real. I would say the reality. Now the reality we know that one without a second is the reality. We know that the reality is the identity between Jiva and Brahman. But on that reality, something has been superimposed. Something is superimposed. Not that we are superimposing it. Something is superimposed. And what is that superimposed? A vastu. A vastu, that which is not a thing, that which is not a substance, that means that which is not real, that which is not a thing. The terminology of the Vedanta is very clear. Maharashtrians, please. All please. We use two words. Vastu also we use and Padartha also we use. Padartha. The meaning of the word Padartha is meaning of a word. As soon as a word is uttered, some meaning comes in our mind. That is called Padartha. I told Maharashtra because the different recipes are called Padarthas there. Now, whether it is real or not, we have not checked it. It is only the meaning of a word, unchecked. But Vastu means it is a thing. It is reality. That is the difference. Now, in the Padarthas, on analysis, we will find it is not a real thing. It will become Avastu. So, Vastu means reality. Avastu means that which is not a thing, that which is not real, that which is unreal, has been superimposed upon the thing which is real. What is real? Existence, consciousness, bliss is real. What is real? The universal, absolute infinity is the real. What is unreal? The subject-object division is unreal. I and the world is unreal. The manifoldness is unreal. The appearance of different things is unreal. Brahman itself appears as everything through names and forms. And so, we do not see that Brahman. We do not see the universal. We see only the names and forms. And names and forms have no substance. Names and forms have no reality. And we see them in place of the reality which we should have seen. That is called superimposition. Superimposition means we experience, see, feel, touch, smell, imagine unreal things in place of the reality. That is called superimposition. And so, this superimposition is defined as unreal thing, aropa. That means imposition. Imposition of unreal things on real things is called superimposition because the other thing is hidden. That is called superimposition. When the snake appears, you do not see the rope. So it is called superimposition. Now, according to Sadananda's style, every word he uses is defined, and that is how he develops his Vedanta treatment. What is was so? Here, two things appear. Adharopa has been defined as aropa, Raju and Sarpa were examples only. See, the two new words came as Vastu and Avastu. So he has to tell us what is that Vastu. And he has to tell us what is that Avastu. So in 33, Vastu, Satchidananda, Advayam Brahma. Whatever he can describe in short. Actually, Vastu is Neti Neti Vastu. Vastu is that which cannot be described. But the most approximate description is being used. And the most approximate description is that Advayam, one without a second. That means all is that. One without a second we call a thing. When the appearance of the second, third, fourth is that one only. When the one appears as 2, 3, 4, it is called one without a second. Otherwise, you could have only one. And what is that one without a second? Existence, consciousness, bliss. Existence. Now this pencil. I will say this pencil exists. Brahman does not exist in that sense. It would become objective. The pencil exists. When we say this, two things are mixed in our consciousness. Pencil and existence. Pencil and existence. Two ideas you may call, two sets of consciousnesses is mixed in our mind. I throw away the pencil. Pencil is not existing. But existence was there. Now the table exists. If you remove the table, the floor exists. If you remove the floor, Brahman exists. So Brahman is existence. The very abstract concept or consciousness of our experience of existence, that is Brahman. That one has to understand. And that is why in the Mangalacharan, Akhandam Satchidanandam was told. So, existence unbroken. I think to some extent we understand this and we understand more and more as we proceed. So, existence is different from a thing existing. A thing existing becomes an object to me. I remain separate. But existence, my existence, your existence, the world's existence, different things' existence. So existence is only one, which appears in different forms. Existence appears as I exist, you exist, table exists, chair exists. Existence is one. It appears to take different forms. And those forms are unreal. The existence is real. Similarly, consciousness. My consciousness, your consciousness, we have found that they are only catchments, like the old bulb giving light to the room, but the light is only in the filament. So, consciousness, the word consciousness or knowledge is used in so many different senses also. Not my superficial consciousness. I know a thing. So first, knowledge has to be there. I see you. I know that I see you. If I close my eyes, I do not see you. I know that I do not see you. This knowledge, abstracted, is called consciousness. If I will be changed, you will be changed, table will be changed, seeing will be changed, yet there will be a consciousness. That is Brahman. So, such is Ananda, who has just now seen. So Satchidananda, which is one without a second, which appears in different forms, is Brahma. Now the word Brahma also has a meaning. The word Brahma also has a meaning and it should not be forgotten. I will tell you some funny things. When I see Vedanta Pravachana, Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, they do not know what is Brahma. As if some object is truth. There is Brahman has a meaning. And the meaning of Brahman is that all pervading reality. The meaning of the word Brahman is all pervading reality. Brahmati Brahmayati. That which is the great, that which makes other things great, that means it is all pervading reality. And all pervading automatically is transcendent also. So Brahman, the word Brahman means all pervading reality, which is of the nature of existence. This is a rough idea. We'll get the we'll get only correct idea only when we'll realize it. Bhoje Pran Bhojajar Swami Vivekananda says. He only understands who has realized it. But by that time, let us have some concept. So Brahman is all pervading transcendent reality of the nature of existence, consciousness, please. That is the thing, the reality. Ajnanadi Sakala Jada Samuho Avastu. Ajnan Adi. Adi in Sanskrit mostly does not mean etc. like English. No. Adi can have two meanings. Adi means there is a series of things, the first of which is this. Things, a series of things beginning with this is called Ajnana Adi. A series of things beginning with Ajnana. The other meaning can be Ajnana Adi Yesha. Things which are coming, Ajnana is the source and things are coming out of it. This is the two different meanings of Ajnanati. You have to take it up in the next week. Huh? I'm just describing a little. This second part of this sentence 33, we'll take it up next time. Sakala Jada Samuho. Jada means bereft of consciousness. That is avastu. Those things which have no consciousness have no existence also. Those things which have no consciousness have no reality also. Now the only question is the link. Ajnanadi Sakala Jada Samuho. The link we have to understand. Jada is bereft of consciousness. Samuha means group or all the things which are don't appear to have consciousness are unreal, avastu, not things, and they are superimposed upon the existence, knowledge, bliss, Brahman. That is the meaning of Adhyaropa. Vastu and avastu have been explained in this way. The link between this Ajnana Adi, we shall explain on the next turn. Very important thing, we shall explain on the next turn. We have not explained the word Ajnana up till now, though we have called it wrong knowledge. But how Sadananda uses Ajnana is something very special, something very peculiar, and we have to deal with on the next. Om Akhandam Satchidanandam Avang Manasagocharam Manamakiladharam Ashraye Vishasiddhaye Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna